This is the Prusa XL, a monstrous 5-tooled machine with an equally monstrous price tag. Is it worth it? Let's find out. First, I want to let you know I bought this machine. It's finally Friday.
It's finally a beautiful Friday.
I was one of the pre-orders when the Prusa XL was announced, November 18th, 2021, so many years ago. And then the wait.
One eternity later.
And then the shipping announcements. There's actually a tweet. He talked about the shipping announcements because it was right around the time that the LTX Expo was happening in Vancouver, Canada, with the 5-headed Prusa XL now shipping, and me being someone who put forth $4,000 to pay for the 5-headed machine. I thought, 5-headed machine I've paid for will be within driving distance of my house. Why don't I just propose taking the one from LTX as my pre-order? I shot my shot. There's no one guarding the Prusa booth. There's no one guarding the 5-headed XL. So I have an idea. I'm gonna steal it. And then this happened. Remember when I talked about stealing that? And I thought I needed a good excuse to get it out of the box. And it was my birthday. So what I did is what anybody in my position would do: have a freaking birthday stream getting the XL out of the box and hopefully printing its first print for me. I think at this point we're gonna call it good because we've put this together. We've taken it out of the box, put it all together. We've verified that it can print. For the XL, it does have 5 heads, and on each head is a 0.6 millimeter nozzle, and above that is a Prusa neck extruder, because this utilizes those new nozzles that Prusa and team have come up with that are compatible with their neck extruder system. Each nozzle goes to 300 degrees C. As far as the bed goes, there are 16 individual heat bed segments that each go to 120 C. Auto bed leveling is done via nozzle tap thanks to that neck extruder, and it's a 360 cubed build volume. The motion system is Core XY, which is a wonderful motion system for a machine like this, and they didn't put that bar up front, which means I didn't have to use my angle grinder. Now with 5 tools, 5 colors, 5 filaments, you might be talking about the waste product from a machine when doing multicolor or multi-material prints. And I have to tell you, it's far, far less than when sending all material through a single nozzle. If you're printing with nozzle 1 and it has to go back here and it gets the second one to bring it out, it's not going to be primed. The pressure's not going to be appropriate. So what it does is it brings it to a purge tower and it just gets it ready. And it uses a very minuscule amount of filament to do this. And then once it's ready, it quickly moves into place and continues printing. Not only is a multi-headed 3D printer better for doing multicolor prints, it's also better because it takes less time. There's not that action of having to purge and retract and bring more filament in. In fact, Caleb from Make, who recently did his Prusa XL review, showed an image on Twitter that demonstrated this fantastically. You can see that the time savings are there for the XL because it doesn't have to retract and purge material. It couldn't be a review without some prints, and we've got one print over there that we'll get to in just a little bit. First prints on this machine were actually during the live stream, and I did this little design on the bed. I have since thrown that away. I utilized the XL for a print farm project, and where I made this case for Crate 3D, medium cheddar. I used my print farm behind me, but also my XL to make a bunch of these red pieces. It did make quality pieces that fit with everything. It is a little furry, but thankfully the hacksmith has a tool. I can clean those right up. I also used the XL for this project with Dangling Carrot Creative. They were making this incredible haunted garden down in California, and it was to benefit the workers, the tradespeople that worked in Hollywood during the strikes. And we made a lot of these little tiny dangling carrots, and I used my bamboo print farm for that, but this really, really big carrot wasn't gonna fit on those build plates. So I made this large carrot, this incredibly large carrot in black, orange, and green on the Prusa XL in Polymaker materials. And I remember thinking to myself, this is the smoothest thing I've ever printed. And I can't show it to you because I delivered it to Dangling Carrot in person and they loved it. They absolutely loved it. And in fact, they painted it and it looks amazing, absolutely amazing. This skull tome from Clockspring 3D was printed on the XL. It's a functional print because I use it to store some of the bits and bobs that come with the machine. But at the end of the day, it looks fantastic. I actually made a YouTube short about this and it looks good. The gold up front is just otherworldly. It doesn't even look printed, and that's Golden Winter from Printed Solid, one of my favorite materials that's not high five blue. I also made this football looking vase or urn, as people on social media have said they think it is. This is a Clockspring design and it's printed on the Prusa XL in a bunch of different colors. Courtney from Filament Stories and Sven who is Clockspring 3D actually came to visit, and I said, what should I print on this machine that's a model of yours? And he suggested this. We just printed it, and it's a big vase. Some people said it's an urn. Some people said it looks like a football. But either way, I do think the XL did a great job with this. I think that it came through and reproduced in a way that just looks fascinating. I did have to put that Golden Winter back on the machine to make this freaking awesome flexi dinosaur. Look at that. Rah, rah, rah. Oh, I love this. Oh, I'm tired. So this was printed on the XL in Printed Solid's Golden Winter, one of my favorite materials. And the quality on this is out of this world. It actually boggles my mind how great the machine was able to reproduce this model. It looks absolutely stunning. You know, I did print a coffin. It's full of some stuff, and it just sort of seals together like that. The machine did a good job making this. I think what happened with this, because you can see that the bat figuring on this side doesn't look as good as it could. And being a multi-material model, I think this one was offset more outside of the model than this one is, because this one looks just fine. And here's what's really cool. When we talk about waste products in 3D printing, that's the purge tower. It got a little squirrely there, but you know what? This is a waste piece, and so it doesn't matter how this looks. This could look horrendous and still be successful, just like me. One thing that was fun to print was that octopus. There are some issues with the materials. This light blue, it was old and I think a bit out of spec. The gold here, I do love it, and it looks out of this world. It looks stellar. One of the things that I thought really is cool about this is all of the little suckers on the bottom of the arms. They're all individual pieces. This shows you how tough of a model this is. I do need to work on seam placement. Apparently that's a skill I still need to learn, because it could have been placed in the back, but instead it's right there. So you know what? I still love him. Well, you know, I also printed a Chuck cube, a multicolored Chuck cube. I love Chuck, and it's a cube. Why not? You know, I also printed this Merry Christmas sign from Fix'em Dude, and it looks really cool. I did the Hedamame updates on my XL. I printed the parts for those, and they look fantastic as well. And you know, they sound good too. Don't forget, 45 Drives utilizes 3D printing in their production, and I upgraded the parts in my HL15 storage server to a much better color. The SSD caddies were printed in High Five Blue PLA. And how could I forget half a build plate full of these little red boots? I gave them out at our family Christmas gathering. They were a hit. There's this model by Clockspring that came out really fun. So you get to store your stuff in there, and then you can close it down. And it just looks kind of neat. And the reason I want to talk about this one first is because that's the waste tower. Again, not that much, but that wasn't the first time I printed it. I don't think it's necessarily something that's wrong with the XL. I just think it's a really tough print that needed a little bit of assistance. I posted about this online. Filament Frenzy actually made a suggestion, so thanks, Tom. I do appreciate that. There's a tiny, tiny post, and that has to print like this. So it's pointing straight up. It has to go tall and then build off of it like that. And it fell down. I switched to a different red, and it still fell down. So what I did is utilized a suggestion from Tom. I was thinking about doing supports, and he said just do it, but add a little bit. So I was able to paint on just a little bit on the model. I tried organic supports or tree supports, thinking that it would just kind of grow into where it needs to be. That doesn't work in Prusa Slicer yet. The software doesn't take into account multiple separate geometries when computing the path for tree supports. And so the tree supports for Model A will sometimes grow through Model B. I would imagine, being software, that's something that they'll solve in the future. But until then, what should I hide in here? Now it's time to talk about this. This is the Murder Corn, and this is by Chelsea from Chaos Cortec, or Chelsea Creates Things. It's over on Thangs, and it's a great model. It's a really good model. So what I did was take the model into Prusa Slicer and paint it myself. I assigned the 5 different colors to the 5 different areas that I wanted printed, and then I sliced it up. My painting wasn't perfect though, because you can see some artifacting on the eyes. And those artifacts are there because, well, one, when I was doing the digital painting process, I just missed them, and we all miss things from time to time, but also Prusa Slicer is missing a feature that Bamboo Studio has, and that's gap fill. And in Bamboo Studio, you can adjust the gap fill to take care of things like this. Little missed triangles that appear and that you might miss from time to time. And so I'm hoping that that gets backported over to Prusa Slicer, and we have a painting experience in Prusa Slicer that has that gap fill. So my painting wasn't perfect, and I realized that a murder corn should have blood on their knife. So I set out to do the impossible. 6 colors on a 5-tool machine. But how? Well, within Prusa Slicer, you do have the ability to insert an M600 command, which is the command to tell the printer to stop because you want to swap filaments. I don't need yellow until we get to that height, right? Yellow only goes to right there, and then I can swap out yellow for another color, and I can put red on the knife, but then I can still make the eyes a different color. Yeah, let's do that. So within Prusa Slicer, I was a little hacker man, and I went in and I colored it appropriately, and I put in the color change at the right level, and I thought, send it! It was time to live stream, and I thought this would be great because I could show it printing, and I could show people how the M600 command lets you get more than 5 colors out of a 5-headed machine. And the time was there, and it got to that point, and then it paused, and then sadness, because the M600 command didn't know which extruder that I wanted to change the filament on. It just went forth with, I believe it was extruder 1. And I thought, well, this isn't optimal. And so at the time, what we did is I snipped the filament, and then I wait till it got to that point where it needed it, and it was out. Oh, look at that. Yay! Yay! So I manually introduced a filament runout, which then paused the proper extruder, and I was able to pull it out, put the right filament in, and print it out. And it made this. Look at that. There's the purge tower for that one. Purple eyes, red on the knife, and 6 colors: yellow, orange, white, black, purple, red. 6 colors on this. Finally, I had the Chelsea murder corn exactly how I wanted it. But the issue was the Prusa XL was not behaving. If you look at the white sections, they are beyond inconsistent. For some reason, the white, whatever extruder had the white, it was not doing a good job. I can fix this. I worked with Shane at Prusa. Love you, Shane. 1440 Makers, what's up? We started going over different materials and different extruders in the Prusa machine. So you could see that the purple didn't look good. Red did though, white did not. Well, let's swap around the colors in the extruders and see what happens. And red looks good here, white's good here. Wait, no, white doesn't look good there. It still wasn't perfect. And we did more test prints and more test prints. And you know, some stuff looks just awful. I found what I think was the solution because I got a black piece that looks good. I got another purple piece that looked good. I got a white piece, this white filament that looked good.
I had originally thought maybe my problem was the same problem that YGK 3D had and made a video about, where he had to 3D print a small piece, put it on his XL, and then add a couple G-code commands that every time that it went to switch heads, it would bump that head against that paste. And I thought, well, Shane, maybe I have to do this. I have to print the part and add the G code. That just didn't sit right with me. And so Shane said, you need to lubricate. And they have since released a blog post on this, but essentially these parts on the printer, these 3 different rounded screw heads fit into the back of this carriage. And when it goes to pick them up, if it's just slightly off without lubrication, friction can impact it because then it's held because of friction slightly off, which is what created all of these terrible layer inconsistencies. So what I did was 3D printed this little lube adapter that Prusa had made. It took 10 minutes on the machine, and I attached it to the bottle of lube and I started lubricating each of those rounded bolts. Now I finally have a fully functioning battle station here to make my dreams come true and get a 6-color murder corn done.
Let's get it off and take a look. All right, here we go. Oh, well, if we take a look at this, it's still not exactly what I'm hoping to get out of this machine with regard to this model. During the print process, I was told that M600 was fixed in the latest firmware that I had installed on the machine. And when it got to that point, well, have a look. M600, it worked to pause the machine, but it won't allow me to choose extruder 5 to change the color. I'm recording from my phone here. I just came in to change the color. I had to manually heat this extruder 5, and manually remove the filament and then snake in the new filament and push it through and get it to purge a little bit. So that's where I'm at right now. But if you can see, I've got blue filament in there, and this should continue. Fingers crossed. Without M600 working properly for me, what I had to do was manually remove the filament from the extruder, which actually wasn't that hard to do, and then back it out and then put new material in, and then make sure it purged, and then take that purge off when it starts the print, and then it actually continued. Where it happened is right here, and unfortunately, there was a layer shift. The layers look better, so everything in white here looks better. Again, I still have to figure out how to do seams, apparently. Like the white's good, the orange is good, yellow's good, black's good, the red's good. Like the blood looks fantastic on the knife. And I gave him blue eyes. Why not? The bottom here, I did add supports. You could see them on the build plate, but for some reason, that level of overhang is just not something that printer is going to do well. Now, it could be that it's a 0.6 millimeter nozzle at 0.25 millimeter layer height. That's a lot of plastic coming out for it to be able to cool. It may require a smaller layer height or a smaller nozzle orifice in order to print properly, but that's something that I'll have to look into. I'm like 95% happy with this. 95%. That's not bad, but I know we can do better, and I know this can do better, and I want to do better. This is $4,000. I paid $4,000 for this plus shipping, and it comes assembled. But I put quotes around assembled because they can't ship it exactly like this. It would introduce an incredible number of errors. And so all of the tools are not attached. They come in their own boxes, and then you plug them in, and then you go through a set of calibration. It takes a couple hours to do if you're doing it properly, and so I had to do that. So it's not assembled in that you get to take it out of the box and hit go. It's assembled mostly, like the frame, the electronics, the motion system, those are all put together. And as people who have gotten the Prusa XL kit have experienced, it does take a while to build this. So with that not needing to be built in the quote unquote assembled version, you do save yourself a lot of time, but there is still time that needs to be taken in order to get this properly set up in printing. A lot of people really don't like this $4,000 price tag, and they say it's overpriced, and it's not. It's absolutely not, and here's why. Back in 2015, my little channel was starting out, and I reached out to G-Create and purchased a G-Max 3D printer, and it took 6.5 weeks to get to me, and I paid $1,999. It was awesome. It was freaking awesome. And I used it to print all sorts of massive things. Talk about a throwback. That G-Max printer is what printed the 400% hairy lion. I remember working with the designer to make the hairs specifically sized so it could be scaled up properly. That was printed on my G-Max 3D printer. So was the G-Max actually worth the $2,000 at the time? Yes. Absolutely 100% yes. Yes! It was the largest large format 3D printer offered at the time by a company that offered a warranty and support. It was a product sold by a company to consumers. It was the only one at the time of that size. So yes, it was absolutely worth $1,999. Being the only one of that size at that time means that when I purchased it, I was an early adopter. And anytime you're an early adopter of technology, you pay a premium to acquire the thing. So as an early adopter, I did pay the premium. I paid the $1,999 plus shipping to get the thing, but I had the thing. But then sometime later, a little company you might know as Creality came out with the CR10. And it sold like hotcakes because it then democratized that size for consumer 3D printing. It cost nearly nothing compared to the G-Max for something similarly sized. That CR10 100% changed the game for large format 3D printing. It wasn't built like a G-Max 3D printer, but it sure could print like a G-Max 3D printer. That $1,999 that I paid in 2015 for the G-Max 3D printer, now with the CR10 released, is it worth it? No. And now, not just the CR10 and its variants, now we have things like the Cobra 2 Max, or the Neptune 4 Max, or the T500 from Comgrow. All very large build volumes, and all below $1,000. So for Prusa and the Prusa XL, they 100% can charge $4,000 for this machine because it's the only one that exists. The XL exists in a class all by itself. It's produced by a company and warranted and supported by that company. It's not perfect, but most of the problems that I've had with this machine are software related. And so because it's a product offered by a company that supports it and warranties it, then it can support it with future firmware updates that can solve issues, can fix problems, can make it speedier with input shaping. All of that available via software. I know I've showcased models that have had issues, but I've also had amazing models that look breathtaking, that look smooth, that look perfect, that look nearly injection molded. So will it always be worth $4,000 for this machine? No, it won't, because down the road, there will be companies that make tool changer platforms, that make them similar to this, or that make them better than this, that make build volumes that are similar to this, and then charge much, much less than this. When that happens, that $4,000 price tag for the Prusa XL is going to be much, much, much harder to justify. And I say that as an owner. I paid for this machine, and I have had some issues with certain parts of it, but I've also had a joyous time. If you have the budget for an XL, and you want the XL, and you get the XL, I think you'll be happy with the XL. And just a little note at the end here. My XL, the one I purchased, 0.6 millimeter nozzles. But in the time that I've had that, Prusa and company have said that because of the input shaper firmware that's available for this machine, they can achieve the speed they were trying to go for with the 0.6 nozzle, but get the detail they need out of a 0.4. And so now XLs are shipping with 0.4 millimeter nozzles, and in fact, review units that are going out to people are 0.4 millimeter nozzles. Caleb at Make actually got one, like we said earlier, and he did this multi-material print. I believe it was on the SD card or the USB stick, where it had flexible filament in between 3D printed bones of a hand. I think it was a hand. It looked really, really cool. And that's kind of where I want to explore with this next, is multi-material. I've had fun with multicolor, and I know that there's still some issues to get out of the way for this, but I'm excited to explore multi-material, living hinges, PEG for supports in PLA materials, or flexible hinges on things. That's really where my heart is next, and that's what I want to explore with this machine. So I'm hoping you want to see that too. And I did find out that I am getting a review unit, a Review XL. So it does come with the 0.4 millimeter nozzles, and I will get to put it through its paces. So I'm really curious to find out what you would want me to test between the two machines, because this is one of the original ones shipped out, and then we've got these new ones that have different nozzles, possibly different firmware, different boards, different something. There's going to be differences between the two, and if you're interested in finding out what those are as well, make sure you're subscribed. Well, those are my thoughts on the Prusa XL and why I think it's in a class all by itself, but only for a limited time. If you agree or disagree, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment down below. But in the end, you made it this far, so you're awesome. Don't forget to hug each other more. Fight for a cause you believe in. Multi-material print all the things. Yeah? And as always, high five.